My name is Sari Bouya. I'm an expert in business innovation. So I help businesses innovate their leadership, their cooperation, their client relationships more quickly than they innovate their products. On the other hand, I train coaches and consultants to be able to do this work. And for that, I use transactional analysis. Last time we talked about your personality being like an archive with three drawers: parent, adult, child. We talked about how to see these drawers, how patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior get established during your life. Today, I want to talk about how you use those drawers. So the last time we talked about the structure of your personality. This time we'll talk about the functionality. This was the drawing from last time. We said, well, you've got parent, adult, child, and some of it is inherited from your parents, some of it you use in the here and now, some of it is what you developed as a child. But using this, you can also say, okay, so if I have this in my archive, how do I communicate? And we actually use this model to describe various ways of communication. And within TA, we recognize 5 ways of communication. We call them 2 from parent, 2 from child, or 3 from child, and 1 from adult. We call this the functional analysis of ego states. So what we say is within parent, you've got 2 ways of communicating on the whole. So one way is called critical parent or structuring parent, where you give directives. So if I tell you make 20 copies, that would be typically from the structuring parent. The other side is nurturing parent, where we go, what can I do for you? So it's really the caring transaction, the empathic transaction. From the adult, we've got a more factual way of communicating. So it might be, how many copies did you make? And you'd answer 20, for instance. From the child ego state, we talk of 3 or 2 ways of transacting. It depends on what school you follow. So one way from the child is transacting from adapted child, where you adapt to an external parent or an internal parent. So you might go, how do you do? And you automatically put out your hand because that's what you've learned to do. Or you adapt to rules. When you cross a road, you look right, left, right, depending on what country you live in. So that's called adapted child. We've got also in that same vein, we've got rebellious child, where you rebel against the external or internal parent, where you might go, why should I make the 20 copies? Which would be a typical rebellious child reaction. And we have the free child, which is really free from parental influence, we call it. So that means that you're free to react spontaneously and autonomously and authentically from this inner feeling of connection. So sometimes you look across the room and you catch someone's eye and you smile automatically because you've got this connection. That's typical free child stuff. So when we talk about communication within transactional analysis, we actually look from what ego state are you transacting. And each ego state has a different effect.